Hi, Sue Wilson, and I've got a lovely daffodil card to share with you. And it's not got a sentiment, but I think it's just so beautiful, it really doesn't need one. So I'll show you what we'll be using. From our frames and tags, I have the new Daffodil Flower Square. And I'm going to be doing a bit of framing with the Noble Collection double-stitched rectangles, or excuse me, squares. Yes, these are lovely. Okay, pop these to the side. And I'm also going to be using some crystal tints. This is the emerald green, this is the teal Tourmaline, and this is the yellow Citrine. So I'm going to be using these three colors. So what we're going to do is I've already gone ahead and cut out the daffodil out of black card, and I've popped it onto a piece of acetate. Now you can use a quickie glue pen, spray glue, Cosmic Shimmer glue, anything you want. Just make sure it's glued down really well. And I always recommend keeping the acetate larger than what you need, and you can use that kind of as a palette. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the flower, and this is the way I like to do it. I like to pop some onto the edge of the acetate. Now initially what you can do is you can paint it on, which I find works a little bit better. Anytime you have a wet product on card, you run the risk of having the card warp a little bit. So I find it's easier to pop a little bit into each section and just keep it nice and thin and put down what I call like a base coat, okay? And just sort of seal the edge. Don't worry about going over the top of the die cut at all. I will show you later. It's just not going to, show whatsoever. Just put a little bit into place. And I find this way you have a little bit better control rather than going direct from the bottle onto your acetate. Okay, so I've just filled in that little section. We'll go around here. And this is actually a really quick and easy one to do. So I'm going to go ahead and paint the entire thing in, and we can see what it looks like when we get a base coat on it. So now I've got the yellow laid down as a base, and I've kind of gone around the edges of the die and just sort of touched it with the brush. So I've kind of got what I call like a seal going on. So it'll dry on there and give it just like a light coating. So you want to just clean your brush, and this is just water, and I'm going to use a little piece of kitchen roll in between. I'm going to go in, I'll tell you what, let's use the emerald green next. I'm going to put in the leaves, a little bit there. And this is quite a bit darker of a color, obviously, than the yellow, so it will show up a bit more. But I still do basically the same thing, just sort of lay down a little bit of color on it. There. So I've got the base down on all of those colors, and that only took a couple of minutes. It didn't take very long at all. So I would give it a few minutes to dry, and then what I would do is I would go back in and give it a second coat. And you see how you get a few bubbles every once in a while? That's another reason why I don't like to take this directly into that unless I've just pulled off that tip first, and then I can go in like that, so I won't get any bubbles. But I still find it's easier to paint these in personally, but it's a preference. You know, if you find it's easier to use it straight from the applicator, that's the way you should do it. You can do it either way. Just remember, you do have a little bit of a bubble issue. You don't want those bubbles to come up into your beautiful painting or project, whatever you're using. So get into there, and I find it's easier to get the paintbrush into some of the corners too. So we're just going to pop another coat onto this. And I'm not going to do the whole thing because I've got one already done, but you can see how it started to build up those layers and get that really pretty yellow coming through. Because I've painted it so lightly at first, it's dried by the time I've gotten around to it. There we go. So you can see that. Okay. Not going to do any more. You kind of get the idea, I think. So I'm going to set this to the side, and I'm going to bring in one that I've done, and let's pop the lids on here. Set that off to the side. Okay, so I've got one I've done here already, and you can see some of it's dried right along the edge and on the top. Don't worry about that at all. I'm going to put the base on it, so that really pops that color out when you put the white base behind it. I'm going to bring in some Cosmic Shimmer glue. I'm going to go around the edges here and just put a really nice thin line of it. Anything that's put behind where the actual flower is, you will probably be able to see You can do a little bit if you want where the actual die cut is, just to make sure that your center stays down, but keep it very, very light. Pop that on and line that up. And we're just going to give that a second to set. Okay, so now I've gone ahead and cut one in white. So if I wanted to, let's say, have that be a black outline, I could use another black one on top. What I'm going to do is give it a little spray right onto the back with some spray glue. And I'm going to just ever so lightly offset it. So we'll have a little bit of the black showing and just a tiny bit of a shadow coming through, which I think is really, really pretty. There we go. Pop that on, and I've actually got a little bit of the base off crooked, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to tidy that with some scissors. There we go. So now you've got a really, really pretty daffodil, which, by the way, you can go that way or that way, so it's quite nice. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the rest of my card, and we're going to set up a base for it. So I've gone ahead and cut a piece of black card. I wanted that drama, that really pretty black and white look to it. So I've started with a black base, and I have cut it at just about, it's like 6 1/3 inches. Yeah, using the stitched squares. So I've got a very thin square frame here and then a smaller one here. A little bit of mounting foam on the back. So I find the best way to do this for me is to start with the outside edge and kind of work my way in, and that way I tend to get it a little bit more even. So I'm just going to eyeball around the edge. Let me just see if that looks about straight. Oh, actually, there we go. Had it upside down. Let's try that again. And that's not too bad. I'm sure if I measured it, it's not exactly perfect, but it's close. And then I'm going to go with this one. Take off the mounting foam on this. And we're going to center that inside the frame we just laid down. And I just think it's a little bit easier to do it this way rather than trying to find the center and work outward. That's probably as close as I'll get. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and put that onto my base. Now, because I've used the black and white here, I decided to go ahead and use the black and white on my base in my matting and layering. And we'll just have that beautiful pop of color from the center from the flower. Pop that right in. Oops, a little bit low. Let's try that again. There we go. And my daffodil. Now I've got 2 layers of mounting foam on this one, so it's going to be just a little bit higher in the center. Totally your call if you want to put it this way, that way. Works either direction. There we go. And I'll give you a quick measurement overall. On the finish card, it is 7 3/4 square, should be. Yes. And there you have it. Isn't that lovely? And I just think the Crystal Tints gives it that beautiful pop of color, and it's so eye-catching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget, our YouTube channel has so many more for you. Don't forget, like us and subscribe.